And continuing on, the purpose of today is to, where's my thing, purpose of today is to understand the purpose of the primary parts of the VC, things we've already talked about. We already talked about the motherboard. Everything has to be connected to the motherboard and it doesn't work for more reason than just the data. The motherboard determines everything else. It determines what integrated components we already have, what kind of CPU we can put on it, what kind of memory we can plug into it, and what kind of additional items we can plug into our PC. So the motherboard is the biggest, most important overriding factor. Everything has to connect to the motherboard. All the calculations happen on the central processing unit, or CPU. It's the thing that people know the most about their PC normally because it's the thing that's advertised the most. There are no motherboard advertisements. You'll never see some advertisement. I have never seen an advertisement from BioStore, Star, or Gigabyte, or Asus motherboards. We see one from Asus computers because they make both. But you do for processors because that's what people tend to know the most about their computer. We talked about the different ways that we measure. There are two ways that we measure our computers. We either measure in speed or capacity. When we're talking speed, we're talking hertz or cycles per second. When we're talking capacity or size, we're always talking about bytes, or bytes are 8 bits, right? So all of these terms over here apply to both hertz and bytes. So we could say kilohertz or kilobyte. We could say megahertz or megabyte. We could say gigahertz or gigabyte. We could say, I didn't say terahertz or terabytes. Nothing goes in terahertz, but we do have things in terabytes, and a tera is a trillion. That will be a matching on a test, I guarantee. You know, kilos 1,000, megas a million, gigas a billion, and teras a trillion. Okay? If you match the first letter, you'll always remember. Okay? Because if you start out with mega being a million and tera being a trillion, all you've got left is kilo and giga.
And then you should know.
And hopefully you know kilos 1,000. Okay? And then there's only one left for you. Just a memory aid if you aren't good at memory. Okay, so we measure CPUs in hertz or cycles per second, and right now we're talking in gigahertz or billions of cycles per second that a standard processor goes through. And we talked about the ways we measure processors, and not just in the gigahertz, also in the number of cores on the processor and the amount of memory that's on the processor. And we get way more into that in the chapter on that. Okay, then we got into memory, or random access memory, which is the memory that the processor uses. It is primary storage to the processor. So when we talk about primary and secondary storage, we're talking about for the processor. RAM is primary storage for the processor. You don't save anything. It's both temporary, that look like temporary, we'll pretend it does, and volatile, meaning it goes away very rapidly, it's refreshed thousands of times a second. If there's a power blur, RAM very readily can lose what's in there. And the easiest way to fix most PC problems is to reboot our computer, restart, and that clears out all the RAM and makes it work. And every single time students come down here with, my computer doesn't work funny, I say restart it and then it works fine. Okay? Because what seems to be happening, the students will say shut down, and as soon as it starts to shut down, they close the lid. And they did not shut it down.
Well, some kids just don't, they say that they want to leave it because then they don't have to.
And you know what, it's not going to hurt anything, other than it could overheat the processor.
And your battery.
Your battery's still running, okay? But the reason we put solid state drives in the first place is because I didn't want that to be a factor.
So if I left it on all day but then turned it off at the end of the day before I left,
it may be fine. Because all it's doing is suspending a little bit and then resuming to get lifted. But you can have memory problems. If you shut down and restart, how long does it take to start? Really? Yeah, I mean, less than a minute. You don't even have your books ready to take notes in less than a minute, right? So it's better on the device to go ahead and shut it down. But if you know you're going straight from English to social studies, you're going to have it out, close it, and I'm going to pull it out right. But don't leave it in there running for 3 classes. I think we did because now it's really hot, and CPUs, we're not on the CPU slide anymore, CPUs are smart enough today to slow themselves down if they get hot. They didn't used to be. I have a video that I'll show you where CPUs and CPU blowing up. Okay? Literally blowing up, a little hole through a table. Someone could have gotten hurt when they were showing this, but they took a CPU, and what they did was they ran the system as fast as they could. This doesn't have the cooling fan on, and then they popped off the cooling fan. They had it mounted to a table. They had a processor and the system mounted to the table, and they unlocked this, and they lifted it up, and they had the camera showing it, and the CPU literally blew up, went all the way through the table, and ruined the motherboard. But it was a cool demonstration of the fact that but we will when we're at CPUs, promise, just not today. But CPUs now are starting to slow down. And if your laptop gets really hot, you think it just went to 60 degrees when you open it up? No, it's still hot when you pull it out and put it on your desk. So it's still going to run slow until it has a chance to blow itself full, which could be by the end of the class. So your computer, all of a sudden, you're like, Green's is way faster. Mom, I don't know why mine's so slow. Because you're a ding dong and you left it on your bed. So just see. Anyways.
Computer fan from my laptop.
Yes, that actually helps. And not only do they help, they also keep your legs way cool because those things get hot. You know, we talking about they make little pads that plug into the USB on your computer. All they do is blow air and keep your legs.
I think I've had it for like 3 years and eventually it just stopped working. So
mine didn't work, but I don't know. Anyway, we're getting off topic. So RAM is where all the calculations and data get stored while the CPU is thinking. It's primary storage for the CPU. It's the cheapest and usually the easiest way to upgrade our PC. And I guess this is where we stopped?
Yeah.
Yes.
All we found was the operating system.
So we got to the hard drive, and the hard drive is, first of all, it's secondary. Storage. To the PC, it is permanent storage. Storage for our stuff. Okay, it's where most of our stuff. We talked about, I think, did we even talk about the different kinds of hard drives yet? Okay, so I'll digress a little bit on hard drives. So traditional hard drives spin. The normal one spins, and they spin at different speeds. They spin at 5,400 RPM, and better ones spin at 7,200 RPM. Server ones spin at 10,000 RPM, and now they have ones that go as fast as 15,000 RPM. Okay? So this is a normal desktop range right here, and we're actually throwing away all the ones in NT that spin at 5,400. We've got enough hard drives, we're just getting them out of the inventory. Because how much faster is that in percent? Let's do a rough calculation. Somebody just throw out a percent. Yeah, about 33% faster. That's a good guess. It's about 30% faster. 30% is a lot faster. Okay, and this is another 30%. Actually, 25% faster. We actually do have a bunch of these. When we got all those new ones, those drives that you were pulling out, okay, those are all 10,000 RPM hard drives. They're called Velociraptors. They're awesome. Those are really good hard drives. Well, we used them in every computer we could for out. So everyone in the middle school and elementary school computer labs have Velociraptors, and everyone in Mrs. Studebaker's room right now have Velociraptors, and then we ran out. So the question is, do I start putting the regular drives in, or do we go back to cleaning computers and scavenging drives? I don't know. This doesn't really fall in the scope of what we're doing right now, but I'd like to get them out because it kind of stinks to put slow drives in and then go back later and put in fast drives. So those are all Velociraptors, so we're getting rid of all of these. And so we're only going to have these and these in the school, and we have absolutely none of those because they're really expensive when you get that fast. In fact, a 10,000 RPM server drive is expensive enough that I'd rather get an SSD, a solid state drive, which is what you guys have in your laptops. You guys all have solid states, so there are no moving parts at all in these drives. They don't get hot, they don't use as much power because there's nothing spinning. It's just a different kind of memory that holds the information when power goes away, okay? Which is why I really only wanted to do laptops for you guys if you had these. I would have already had to redo probably 20 computers by now, if not more, because of that. shutting the case and going on. Because if all the drives that were in there were 7,200 RPM Western Digital block drives. They're nice. They were nice drives for a laptop. But they're spinning at 7,200 RPM. You close the thing, you drop it in the bag, and you go walking on. They didn't stop spinning. There's no brake. There's no stop the thing. Even if you turn it off, it's still spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute. Probably until you've been in the classroom for 5 or 6 minutes in the next room. And every time you move something that's spinning that fast, it has a chance of just shaking enough to hit the secret head and ruining your software load. And then I redo it. Whereas with these, I don't have to worry about that at all. SSD, solid state drives. They literally are usually about 10 times faster than a traditional 7,200 RPM drive. I will tell you that the 10,000s, you're pretty amazed by how much faster those things. It didn't feel like 30% faster. It felt like they were running solid state. They were pretty crazy. So traditional drives spin, but they hold all of our stuff. Now I will tell you that the advantage of the spinny drive is it should last longer than this drive. This memory has so many read and write cycles to it. Eventually this drive will just be trash. Okay? Do I think it's going to happen in the years that you have that laptop? No. But it's going to happen sooner or later. Will it outlive the laptop? I don't know. We'll see. Okay? But that's the disadvantage of that. What?
How many years old?
They're, I think, 4 years old. They just came out of warranty, and that's why the Air Force got rid of them. So I know that the hard drives that were in them were all 2009 and 2010 hard drives, which makes sense that they're 3 to maybe 4 years old. Because it's not like they make the drive the minute they open the computer, right? They order the drives and they're in a stack, so they were probably at Dell for a year or two prior to being installed, or at least a year. But they were all relatively new drives. So that's why we went with solid states. But again, not as good for long-term storage as a traditional drive, because these are rated in millions of hours how long they'll last in perfect conditions. Okay? So if we look at hard drive, you're going to learn a new term called MTBF in that chapter, which is the mean time before failure, and a lot of them are 1 million hours mean time before failure, and that's like 134 years. In other words, you will be dead before this hard drive should fail. But that's perfect conditions. That is, first of all, this was a perfect hard drive when it was made, which obviously not all, right? And secondly, is it in a temperature-controlled room that's clean and there's no vibration going on? Okay, so I've been replacing hard drives by at least every year. I have 2 server hard drives go bad that I have to redo an entire server to replace the drive, because that room that the servers are in was close to 98 degrees or higher in the summertime. Had no air conditioning, no ventilation, terrible room, terrible design to make that a server. Now it's awesome. Now I can go at any time and go, hey, and that's why I put this in the first place. What is the, so every time I go in now, it automatically pops up 2 things, and boom, what's the temperature in the room? 71.38. And we spent money to get this, but in the long run, it's way worth it that our servers are in better condition, because if they are, then we might see that drive last until I'm ready to replace it, not until it dies. Yeah. So that's hard drives. That's what holds all of our software. It's held on our hard drive. A lot of you guys may only have 1 hard drive on your computer at home. You may have more than that. You don't have to reinstall everything to add a new hard drive. You can just plug in another hard drive, and most PCs will hold more. These only hold 2 in them. Most computers hold 2 up to 5 hard drives in them. And so if you run out of space, it doesn't mean you have to redo everything. You can just buy a hard drive and pop another one in there and start using that one instead. So it's where we, let me see, okay. It's where we store we store stuff. We talk about that stuff being our operating system, which is our most important piece of software on our PC, also our OS, and all of our programs and our data. And we talked to you guys at school about storing that data on your H drive. Do you know why we want you to store your data on your H drive?
It's here. All that, like it's in the network.
Because that network drive is backed up every single week. Okay? So if Mr. Green has his hard drive crash and he comes down to me and I have to swap out the drive and I put in a new one, he's good to go, he's out the door, and all his stuff's on his H drive. If he brings his computer into me and all of his stuff is on his PC and I swap in a new drive and he's out the door and somewhere around there, he gets around the corner and goes, oh, my drive is gone. Where's my English paper that's due tomorrow? I'm gonna get an F, right? So, and I'm not saying you can't keep anything on your hard drive. I'm just saying you should keep it on your H drive too. If it's that important, because we back those things up. The network drives get backed up every week. They get archived every week. I've got the last 4 weeks stored. So if Mr. Harrison said I lost that paper that I saved on my drive, I can just go and look at the backups. Let's go check out the backups right now. I go to Trail BU and I can look. His stuff is stored on the Trail 4 backup, and I've got 4 weeks of Trail 4 backups that I can look at. Let's see if they're all good. Yeah, they are. Okay, I can tell because sometimes they're really small. The backup didn't happen. So I could go back. Ooh, this is really bad. Bad. Look at the date of the backup. It hasn't backed up. Let's see if it's backing up. Okay, it is backing up to the folder, but there's another. This Trail 4 runs right here, and what this does is it increments the backup. That's not running. It's backing up every week, but the increment's not happening. So because that's not happening, none of these are incrementing. So I still got last week's. No, I don't. Look at that. That's 2K. I have got to look at the backup thing for Trail 4. You guys are in trouble. Let's look at the other backups.
You just said we were safe.
I know I did just say it. Okay, let's see. Are we back? Okay, so all the staff backups are happening fine, but the students are in trouble right now. I need to figure out why. So you can see that if I look here, the last staff backup happened 1 week ago today. There's that.
But it should happen today.
No, that's when the last one of those things, I don't know. Oh, that's when they get copied over. So if I look at here, you can see that these don't all happen on the same day. See that the elementary school happened on the 9th, the middle school happened on the 10th, the high school happened on the 11th. Daily happens every single day, incremental happens every single day, and all those backups are good. The only problem is you guys have no backups right now, unless you want something from last May, and then I can get it for you.
Well, it wasn't really.
I'm gonna have to look and see what's going on there. But so it's a good thing I checked.
Yeah.
There. Oops. Somebody's gonna go, where's my stuff? And I'm gonna go, what? Did you keep it on your H drive? I'm gonna back up from last year. So I'm gonna figure out after you guys are done with this class what's happening with the drive. So that's why we back up H drive to our H drive so that we've got backups, which are not currently happening. So I'm gonna have to look them. Anyway, I wasn't expecting to see that when I opened up that folder, was I? So that's the hard drive. The next thing, it's also permanent storage. It's also secondary. It's also called permanent because it's there until it either gets destroyed or we delete it. These are optical drives, when we talk about optical drives, we're talking about CD-ROMs, DVDs, and Blu-ray players. Really, CD-ROMs are a thing of the past, right? Because DVDs read CD-ROMs, and why would you waste the money to put a CD-ROM burner in your computer with DVD burners? Or really, I don't even know if you can buy them anymore because these are so cheap.
This is also secondary.
It's also secondary storage to the CPU. It's also permanent. You could have your operating system on there. There are schools that load everything off of the CD-ROM. They don't even have hard drives in their PCs because then you never have to maintain a hard drive, right? If the CD gets scratched, just drop a new core CD in there, and you're good to go. They load slower. You can't save anything to them, but you could do that. could do that. We have CDs called oh my gosh, where did we stop? Do that? Like there's a hole in your head where the word you're looking for is?
Yeah.
It's a version of Linux that's a Linux Live CD that I'll think of it later that just comes up. Linux is a different kind of operating system.
No, I got that. It's different.
That boots straight from the CD. You can make Windows boot from the CD as well. It takes a lot of work.
But you can't save it.
But you couldn't be able to save anything.
Like at all?
At all. Unless you save it to the network drive. And that's why they do that. Force everybody to save it to the network. But, so we have optical drives. The newer laptops, a lot of them don't have optical drives. You still need them to install Windows and install programs. But you don't always. You ever bought a game that as soon as you put in the game, it goes to the internet to download the game anyway? Okay, if you buy a Steam game like Skyrim, or my son just got Marvel Lego something, superhero, whatever. Okay, so it comes with a DVD. Luke. Okay, so it comes with a DVD. As soon as you put it in, it says log on to Steam. You log on to Steam, and it downloads the game anyway. Why did you give me a DVD? I don't know. Okay, so a lot of them will go to the side. That's to make sure that you automatically have the version that's been patched. It actually is kind of a cheat in that it allows me to sell you a DVD before the software is all the way baked. Okay, but it's going to make you go and get the baked version anyways, meaning fixed. So you can sell software that's half-baked, and then it makes you download it and get the fully baked version. There you go. Kind of try. It's cooking. But anyway, so we've got optical drives. What other kind of drives would you say are also secondary storage? What other things could you list that are secondary storage? Really? Nobody?
Yeah.
Flash drive.
Flash drives, right? And flash drives are secondary storage. And along with flash drives, if you've got a camera, you can get the little
What are those
SD card.
SD cards. There we go. That's what I was looking for. You can do SD cards, right? I've got a 64 gig SD card on my phone, so I can take as many videos of Luke as I want to, and I don't have to worry about running out of space. Okay. Really nice SD card. So you get huge SD cards for secondary storage too. So you could buy, if you're like me, why not just get the cheapest phone and put a huge SD card in it? Unless you get an iPhone, and you have to buy the biggest iPhone because you can't add any storage to an iPhone. I don't like about iPhone because you can't even change the battery out. The battery goes bad. Actually, you can. iPhone 4S is really easy to change the battery. You get an iPhone 4S, your battery goes out. You not pay that. $79 to get it. It's just too screwed. It's just, of course, I broke something else when I'm doing it. But that's what's up. I'm trying to fix it. Josh's charging port on his iPhone 4S went out, and I took it to the Apple store, and they wanted $200 to fix the port. It was $6 online with the parts and the tools. So I bought that, but I missed a little ribbon cable as I was taking out the money.
You had to get a new phone?
And I ripped it. No, I had to order another part and I put it in the part. So now his phone works fine, it charges and everything, but his off button didn't. That's what I ripped the ribbon cable that goes to the off button. Start button? It's just a start button. You don't ever need a start button. The only time you need the on off button is to turn it off and silent the screen. Because it automatically turns on if it's dead and you plug it into charge anyway, so it still uses its phone. But anyway, I digress. You can't change the memory on an iPhone, but you can on almost any Android phone. There are ones that you can't. So that's secondary storage too. Flash drives are the ones. And flash drives, you can even put an operating system on here. You can boot to Windows from a flash drive. You can boot to Linux from a flash drive. You can do almost anything to boot from a flash drive. In fact, one of the things we looked at doing to improve the Dell 600 laptops, the gray ones. Did you guys ever use those?
Oh, yeah.
The problem with those is the hard drives are junk and they're really slow, and you can't buy an SSD for them because they don't have that kind of SSD for that kind of hard drive. And that's what's making this computer slow, because actually the processor's good, we've got 2 gig of RAM in them, but the hard drives are such junk. And we're like, if we could just get them to boot from the flash drive and solve everything. In fact, I bought these little tiny itsy bitsy flash drives so that we could actually glue them in the side of the laptop.
Will they still really go in the car?
But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make that cart and use these little tiny itsy bitsy flash drives so I could just have that sticking out the
Flash
side.
How much
Yeah.
is in that hole?
That's a crumb.
This is I think it's 16. No, it's 8 gig, but that which is more than enough to hold Linux. But not only do those computers not boot from any other kind of drive, you can't boot them from flash drive. So my test was a failure, which is too bad because I really could bring those back to life if I
Why
could do
don't you
that.
just call like flash drives and hard drives, all this good stuff, like primary, and then call the memory secondary?
Because it's to the CPU. Talking about the CPU.
Yeah, but
Shh, shh. Don't get confused. Don't get confused. Memory is primary to the CPU. You're not the user of those things. The CPU is. You don't use the hard drive. The CPU does. You just use the operating system that talks to the CPU. The CPU is. So you gotta think of it that way. Okay. So video card is the next thing that we have that creates the video output. It's what our monitor plugs into. And the video cards of today are computers. They have their own processors called GPUs. Anybody want to guess what the PU stands for? Processing unit. So the G stands for, what are they processing? What?
graphics.
Graphics, right. They have their own graphics
Oh,
processing units. On them, and they have their own memory. Actually, let me say that again. They need their own memory, okay? Just like a computer. Okay? They have their own processor, and they need memory just like a computer.
So these things.
And good video cards that run great graphics, that cost you $100 and some bucks, that will run Skyrim and Need for Speed and really cool graphics and good movies and whatever. Those have their own processors and their own memory. They generally have a big cooling fan like that one does because they get really hot. They have their own power plugs. They like this cheap video card, okay? No external power plug, no extra memory. Well, actually, I have one of those horrible memory chips right there. Okay, it's got a heat sink on it to help cool it because the graphics processing unit on here does get hot, but it doesn't require any extra power because it's not a really good one. This one might have 1 or 2 extra power plugs because it requires so much extra power. This is a lower end video card, has a heat sink on it to cool the GPU, but the memory that it needs, they all have processors. And they all need memory. And the question is, where's it coming from? If it's got a good video card, has, not only does it have a processor, it has its own memory. I brought some in, but I took the wrong one. See if I can find. Throw in my kids' old ones so that we need any better ones here at school. So here's my kids' old Zotac GeForce G8800 GT, which maybe I'll take back because I might put on those computer. But anyways, so this guy's got its own power plug on it. Okay, it has its own memory, and let's see how much memory it has. This is lower. This has 512 meg of DDR3 memory. It's got 2 DVI, high-end digital video outputs on it. And this is I'm not going to say it's a high-end, but it's a much nicer card than this one right here. Now, this one provides all of its own memory to run that one. Let's see what I got over here. This is one of my kids' little video cards. And actually, this one's a GeForce 9600 GSO. This one actually might be better than the one Luke has. This one has 768 meg DDR2. I have to look at his and see what he's got since it's my computer. has its own cooling fan, it's got its own memory down here, and it's got 2 digital video outputs on it. But if it's one like this, where does it get its memory? Now it has a little bit of memory, but it needs more than that.
Share it.
Share is a nice way of saying steal,
Yeah, well, yeah, but like.
because it
does
steals it.
Does it still use it from the?
It steals it from the motherboard. It steals it from the CPU. So if you have a lower end video card that doesn't have its own memory, the memory that I have here in this computer, let's see, I don't know. Okay, so let's say I have 2 gig of RAM in this way for this CPU to use. If I put it in that video card, it's going to steal a half a gig. So now the CPU only thinks there's 1.5 left. Okay, so a lower end video card or an integrated video card too steals memory that you put in for the CPU. It steals it from the CPU. And how do you know if it's being stolen? Okay, there's no stolen on mine. But if you look on yours and you go Windows pause break, and yours may or may not have memory stolen. If I hit the Windows key and then hold the pause break, I should be coming up here. For some reason it's not. I'll just go straight there. There's pause. Windows and then pause. Oh, you have to hit Windows function pause break to get the. So it's Windows function pause, Windows function F12. You'll see it come up, and it says how much memory you have. Let's see if anybody's getting any stolen. It says 2 gig on yours, Windows function F12. And then, see where it says installed RAM, 2 gig? If it was stealing any, you guys all have the better video card, because there's 2 different video cards in these. Some of them have better video cards that have memory, and some of them have video cards that are stealing memory. It would say something like this. I have 12 gig in mine, only 1.9 gig is usable. Something stealing 0.1 gig from the probably making my video. Okay? But sometimes you'll see 3 gig, 2 gig usable. 3 gig, 2.5 usable. And that's because something's stealing it from your processor, and it could very well be your video card. You have a lower end video card. Okay? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with this integrated video card on a standard PC doing homework on, doing Word on, other than that. Because if you only have a gig of RAM in here,
You are not playing any Steam games.
no, not that, not just that, but your computer's going to run slower because the video card's stealing some of it too. Okay, so you don't necessarily have as much as you think you have.
When we were scavenging, the reason we found like 4 memory cards on the motherboard is that because like on those same PCs we were scavenging, we found video.
Those have all had added video cards that have their own memory, and they have 4 gig of RAM. Okay, so they almost had these in them. Okay, which actually isn't a terrible. It's not a gaming video card, but it's a nice, decent video card. Okay, it has a. I mean, it's obviously much smaller than a game one, but it's much nicer than that one.
Yeah, because it has its own cooling. It has probably its own.
Yeah, I don't know how much RAM is on this. Yeah, I don't see anything on like that sense. They're probably looking up. Because I see 4 memory spots, but I don't know if it's actually on this. So video can make a difference, and when we go to the higher end cards, when you guys are doing your gaming computer, the higher end cards have this spot on the top of them, right there, that the card, and I'm not calling this higher end, it's not really higher end, it was at one point. And those are there so that if you have 2 cards in next to each other, they're exactly the same, there's a cable that connects between those 2 and makes them act as one. So it makes your 2 really nice video cards become 1 awesome video card.
So you can find 2 awesome ones.
They have to be the same, and they come with the cable, the SLI cable that connects them together, and you could turn a nice video card into an awesome video card. Because then you're still spending twice as much, right? You still got like 2 of them. But that's what SLI does. You can't see it in that picture, but that's what this little connector is. Top. It's an SLI connector to connect up next to another. So that's what video cards do. They make our outputs. Our outputs can either be analog or digital. This has both. This is digital and analog output. Digital is better than analog. on all of our teacher PCs, what we used to do is we used to take and put one of these on the back to turn.
I just looked at this.
She's peeking out there like,
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
you are here for a camera?
Yes. Fabulous.
Hold on, I got a stand too.
Oh, I guess.
There's a stand there. Let me grab the stand. Sits up higher on the ground.
Thank you so much.
And then it's just magnetized. It sticks right to it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what we used to do is we used to take and put one of these adapters on to turn them both analog. And the reason for that is we have all the analog cables. And all these are analog. And so we take the analog to the teacher PC and take the analog to that. But this summer, we got 100 DVI cables. So we're going to slowly go through the classrooms, take these off, and hook the DVI cable up to the teacher's monitor, because all of them have dual inputs on the monitors, and then leave the analog to the projector. That'll make it a little clearer on the teacher's PC. Because digital is definitely better than analog. And all of our, it used to be that big, huge, ugly monitors didn't have both, but we may have one or two monitors in the whole school that don't, but most of the monitors in the school have dual inputs in the bottom. You can plug it into either one. And as a gotcha, some monitors, you have to choose which input. So teachers and staff will sometimes accidentally hit the input button and switch it to digital, and then all of a sudden they think they're computers. Because they have to switch it back together. And good high-end video cards really only do digital. There's no reason for a gamer to go lower himself to an analog input, which is what that is, and that's an analog. So that's video cards. Oh, the other thing is that motherboards might have its own output, or it might not. And then our choice on motherboard determines whether I can put in an expansion card or not. Okay? Because like this one, I can put this nice DVI or nice PCI video card on. This one, I cannot. It doesn't have the right slot on it, so I can. With this older motherboard, I can't even put a nice video card on. So it depends on, that's another choice that you're making when you buy a motherboard. Did I buy one that I could put a nice video card on? And the other thing is with this one, there's only one video card slot, so I couldn't do the SLI thing anyway. Put it into. Okay, then we can put other things in, and I have network card up here, but there's all other, I really should make this say expansion cards, because I have a certain number of expansion slots on my PC, and that motherboard decides, what kind of things can I add in. I have network card up there because that's one that we probably do have the most expansion cards in, because we had a lot of older motherboards that only had 100 meg connections, and we had cards that had 1 gigabyte, so we would put in extra network cards that would run faster. But there are lots of other kind of cards that you guys can put in, and they're really, you saw how easy it was for me to slide that in. It just goes, boom, it slides in and screws in. Gets its power through the motherboard, it's connected to the motherboard through that slot. You can have expanded USB, like for the example, this one's only got, well, it's got 6 USBs in the back. Maybe you need more, 8, because you've got something like I do. I've got a mouse, and I've got a Mimeo, and I've got a mic, and I've got a camera, and I've got a mouse, and I've got a keyboard. Maybe I run out and I want to add more. You can add an expansion card that adds more USBs in the back. Also, your motherboard might be older and might only be USB 1.1 or USB 2.0, and now USB 3.0 is out. There's only 2 PCs in the school that have USB 3.0, and that's Mr. Fisher's laptop and Mr. Tuslog's laptop, because they came with USB 3.0. I wanted to try USB 3.0, so I bought an expansion card that's in mine to give mine USB 3.0. Actually, it ended up drawing some power over here. But you can add things to your motherboard through these expansion cards, and a network card is just one of the things you could add. The other ones, obviously, that you could, not obviously, that we already talked about, is you can add video cards. You can add, you just said network cards. You can add a modem to dial up. Why would you want a modem to dial up? What would you want a modem for? And I will say not for internet. Dialing up for internet, that's just like, oh, have you guys ever had to dial up for internet?
It's the worst sound.
It's the worst thing in the
Lane's
world.
favorite song.
Although, unfortunately, our elementary school principal is in an area that only does dial up. We can only use dial up. But there are valid reasons for a modem, like if you wanted to be able to fax stuff in and out. My dad has high-speed internet, but he's got a modem to be able to send and receive faxes on his. Other expansion cards we could put in, like I said, is USB, maybe Wi-Fi. We've got a computer out in a football press box and out in the baseball press box that we're actually redoing right now. That's what Garrett's working on, and we need to put Wi-Fi in those because those connect up to our network through Wi-Fi antennas. So all those decisions are made by the kind of motherboard we have. So we're kind of back to whether we can add 2 video cards in, whether we can add USB expansions. All that stuff is decided by the kind of motherboard we choose. What kind of hard drives can I plug into? What kind of memory can I put in? What kind of CPU can I put in? What the plugs are in the back? All decided by the motherboard. And we're at this, power supply. I didn't get the power supply. This is the last part of the PC, and it's the most overlooked. It is actually the first PC chapter we do. Chapter 3 is over power supplies. And it is the most failed component. When people come to me and say, my computer won't turn on, and it actually won't turn on. And we'll talk about power supplies, our interest in that, and get into the boot process tomorrow, since I took too much time.